letter from the Gantry.
One or two long words and a very bad joke at the end. So will you concentrate on that bit, if you can stay to the end, that is. Opta's compiling of statistics and the subsequent interpretation of the facts and figures is unique in football. And there's not a commentator working today who's not been grateful for having access to their science and their skills. We have our differences, amicably debated, I can tell you, such as the use of the word touch in what some, including me, believe should be re-identified as involvements. A top dribbler like Everton's Iliman and Jai takes on opponents in the penalty area, making contact with the ball half a dozen times, let's say. Opta record that whole episode as one touch for the attacker. It would be much clearer if it was noted as one involvement. Why? I'm sure you're desperate to know the answer. Because when a striker brings the ball down in one movement and then with a second contact puts it into the net, it's categorised as a two-touch finish. Yet that moment will go down on the scorer's stats as one touch in the penalty area. Confusing. Easily solved with not using the word touch in two very different contexts. I also think if a player wins a penalty and it's successfully converted, the earner of the spot kick should get an assist. I do understand Opta's counter that there is a problem if the scorer is the same player as the one who's been fouled. A scorer getting an assist on his or her goal would take a bit of getting used to, but it is an accurate summing up of those situations. Anyway, after the first 7 rounds of the Premier League season, so not including last weekend, Opta as usual have come up with some intriguing stats from the top flight action up to that point. As a one-time non-league number 9, I've always been fascinated by data on headed goals. Even though top-level football seems much more possession-based, last season, when of course there was a record number of Premier League goals, 1,246, 203 were scored by headers. That's the most in the season since the famous 2011-12 campaign. You must recall Edin Dzeko, often forgotten though in discussions on this historic occasion, making it 2-2 on the final day with a fine header to pave the way for Sergio Aguero's game winner, title winner for Manchester City. But this season, in the first 70 games, there have only been 29 goals with headers. That's down from 0.53 per game to 0.41. Now, I've taken it one step further to the percentage of headers in total goals. Last season, in that record number of 1,246, 16% were headers. Now we have 29 out of 201 from those first 7 rounds of fixtures. That's down to 14%. You have to forgive me, I've just rounded up the figures to make it simple. Top notch in this category last season were Arsenal. 17 headed goals, those set pieces were already working. Relegated Luton, with great service from the likes of Andros Townsend and Alfie Doughty, managed 15 such goals, West Ham 14. At the bottom of the list, the other 2 relegated clubs, Burnley with 5 and Sheffield United 3, and in between Crystal Palace, who did finish 10th in the league table, managed just 4 headed goals. This season, again a reminder that this is prior to the latest round of games, Brighton and Aston Villa lead with 4 goals apiece. But 6 of the Elite 20 did not find the net with a header in their first 7 games. Crystal Palace, Fulham, Ipswich, Manchester City, Newcastle and Wolves. Fulham and City had 18 headed attempts without scoring, but Villa managed 4 goals from just 10 aerial efforts. It's a smallish sample and too early really for a trend, but it is worth an early investigation. Is the shortage of the traditional number 9s a reason? Are the crosses not coming in from the best wide position for headers because of the preference for inverted wingers? We've all seen some splendid goalkeeping this season. Could that be an explanation? Do not underestimate the influence of data. I was a guest at a London University's event last week alongside the excellent and eloquent Brighton CEO and Deputy Chairman Paul Barber. In the world of heavy spending and debt management, the Seagulls have actually made a profit in the last 2 seasons. In 22-23, a record 122.8 million. That's astonishing. Part of that comes from selling some of their best players, of course, and indeed a manager and backroom staff in the case of Graham Potter to Chelsea. The club's recruitment policy, based on a unique algorithm, saw Mark Cucurella, Leandro Trossard, Yves Bissouma and Alexis McAllister arrive on the south coast for relatively small fees but leave for much, much bigger money. The likes of Moises Caicedo and Robert Sanchez were similarly moved on in highly profitable deals done in the following tax year. Those increased values, of course, are boosted by performances on the pitch. In the football season, alongside that record tax year, Brighton finished 6th and qualified for the Europa League. The students on business courses were fascinated, and rightly so. 20 years ago, algorithm could have been a description of Shearer on the dance floor. Think about it. Now it's the key to success. The Seagulls are still defying the odds, and with 4 of their first 13 Premier League goals, 30% from the aerial route, they yet again have made a head start.